Welcome to the 3G Fitness Podcast,
where 3 generations of trainers come together to discuss all things fitness related. Good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 3Gs Podcast. My name is Coach Cisco.
I'm Coach Michael.
I'm Coach Kyle.
And we have our special guest in the building.
Coach Tommy.
Coach Tommy's in the house. Okay, we're running a 4-part mini-series with Coach Tommy, just bringing him in. We had a blast with him with our first interview that we did with him a couple months back. We were talking off camera, and Tom is a powerlifting coach. We have Michael, who's also a powerlifting coach, myself. You know, Kyle's a very versed person in weightlifting, but we want to kind of pick your brains more on the strategies when it comes to powerlifting and how do you coach your athletes to get to the meet more than anything, Tom?
Yeah. I think it has to be individual.
Yes.
Right? There has to be an individualistic approach. I started off in the powerlifting realm doing a one-size-fits-all type approach with some tweaks here and there as far as individuals go. But, I mean, at the end of the day, right, like no two people are the same.
Correct.
Both physically or mentally or even emotionally. And all that kind of goes into the same, you know, kind of realm as far as lifting and training goes. And so everybody that I work with, it all comes down to who they are and what they respond best to, you know.
Okay.
And that's something more too that I've kind of started diving deeper into in the last, I would say, year or so, just kind of seeing different methods, finding out what works best, managing stress, managing recovery on different levels, because people have different lives, they're in different places. As far as training goes, it's very weird, you know, because I have kind of this plethora of people, and I'm finding that what works for some definitely does not work for others, even more so before than what like I already knew, right? And so it's really taking this approach as far as finding like what works best for them and applying that as much as we possibly can and taking it as far as we can before we're having to not necessarily alter plan, right? Like I'm not going to go from a 4 time a week training plan to a 2 time a week training plan in an effort to just make that drastic of a change or find different stimulus. It's more about targeting the weaknesses, targeting movement efficiency and what they need, and how often per week is really the probably, I would say, some of the bigger factors that come with understanding people and understanding being able to progress in the gym.
Okay. Mike, what do you feel about what he just said right now?
Well, first of all, I agree with them. Targeting the weaknesses of a lifter, you know, because when I'm training someone and I see something that they're not able to hit, for instance, their deadlift like they should, and I look to see where that weakness is happening. Usually a lot of times it's the hip flexor, because, you know, they're coming up too fast with their behind and rather than coming up with their hips. And I'll just focus on that and I'll work on that and keep working on it until they get it, and then I'll move on to the next thing that I think is the weakness of a lifter. So we do have that same kind of strategy. I think he's absolutely right, but we might have a difference in strategy on the person's individual mental state.
Mental state.
I think that. Okay. You know, because Tom's, obviously I've noticed you care a lot about their personal life and everything. I take it into consideration. So there's a difference there. You take it in deep. I take that into consideration, you know, and I look at that. But I also understand that, you know, powerlifting is a sport, and it's not, to me, in my view, it's not a sport that could make you a living in your life.
For sure.
You cannot put that above your job.
Totally.
And that's one way I look at it, is that your job is first. Okay, and then your family's after that. Yeah. But as far as powerlifting being something that I want you to give your 150% and dedicate your time to, I wouldn't go for that. So I do have that type of heart in that.
Not fully ruthless, only partially.
Exactly.
I was told a few times, man, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Well, no, I think you both see it like, I like how you describe powerlifting, where, you know, it's a sport, but it's not a sport you can make a living off of it.
Yeah.
And then I like how you described it, Tom. I know you describe powerlifting like as a hobby.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So it's something that I think it's I think powerlifters, you just have to have a lot of passion to do it and to dedicate time for it.
You have to have a lot of passion. You have to love the sport. You have to love weightlifting. Okay, you have to love everything about it. You know, because to show up at the gym, you know, 4-5 days a week, it takes a lot of dedication and consistency. And if you don't have that consistency, I don't know, you're not going to make it.
Okay, well then let's kind of piggyback off of that, because I know you guys are talking about weekly workouts on how often. I mean, and you said it's based on an individual, but if you just kind of go on a generalization, like how often do you think a power lifter should train on a weekly basis? We'll start off with you, Michael.
4
times a week?
I think 4 times a week. And that's hard to do. You know, I'm not going to, you know, and I don't think you come into the gym and you're there for a half an hour to an hour, you're going to get done. You're going to get what you need done. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. And you've seen, you know, me in there. I've been in there for an hour, 2 hours, even longer than that. Trying to get
for sure, 2.
For sure, 2.
You're never in there just for an hour.
Yeah, for sure, 2 hours.
2 the least.
Yes.
They sit there and they say, well, how can you train this person for that long? Because you're trying to pinpoint, you know, where the problem is, and just doing, you know, 1 or 2 things, you know, I don't think you can kind of get there. I think you got to really focus on what they're doing through the whole, you know, time of your training.
Sure.
And try to pinpoint where the problem is. And, you know, stretching and all those other things are a major factor in lifting. And those take time. You know, when you go in, you know, you want them to stretch.
He's looking at
me because I saw him stretch for the first time in my eyes. I've never seen him stretch like last week.
Yeah, the first time in his eyes, you're not around all the time. But
Kyle comes up to me. He's like, hey, man, do you know Mike's stretching?
Quick little tangent. So he was like on the ground, like, you know, doing like a hamstring stretch, and it was like such a new thing for me to see. I was like, let's go, Mike.
You know,
let's go.
I try to stretch every day. You know, if it's here or if it's at the gym, because I would make my lifter stretch every day before and when she was finished. I would make her do a 15 to 20 minute stretching routine.
So then on average, you're probably saying about 4 times a week, give or take at least 2 hours each workout.
At least.
Okay, what about you, Tom? I mean,
I do 4.
You do 4?
Yeah, 4
okay.
4 times a week as well.
My man.
Early
You look good now.
So
hold on, let me finish.
Early on, this might not make you look good. Early on, I was very, very very hardcore about 60 minutes. Right, 60 minutes in the gym, no more than that. Anything further than that, it's probably too much, especially because, again, they are a person outside the gym and they have a life to get to, right? Like, I don't need these guys in there for 3 hours, right? And plus 3 hours is probably too much anyways, right? If we're really looking at it and depending upon what that looks like, right? Like factoring in rest times and all that stuff, maybe sure. But I'm very much like, short rest, let's get through this, let's bang out our compounds, whatever we need to do. And then you should be like really moving through accessory work and get through it. Now it's probably closer to 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is more so because, you know, the people that I deal with in person have the warm-up routine. They have to kind of go through that, and that does get, you know, included and incorporated. There are very specific things that I'll have some of them do depending upon what issues they may have or what they might need for the day. Or, I mean, they may be coming in feeling a little wonky and we have to kind of throw something else in there. But for the most part, I would call it around 90 minutes. Now, whether they're in the gym for that amount of time or not is different, right? Because for some people, gym time is social hour and it's not always just training time. So, you know, yapping happens and they tend to kind of do that a little more so than normal at times.
Right.
And so I'll have to come over and kind of nudge them through. But yeah, I mean, 4 times a week, 90 minutes. And then what happens within that 4 times a week, it really is dependent upon the person, because I'll adjust or I'll make changes based on things that I'm seeing in terms of progress, fatigue, the feedback they give, and really like what they need in terms of minimal effective dose.
Yeah, but you said you make them do their warm-ups by themselves. They'll come in and do a routine by themselves, basically.
They'll have stuff like one of my guys. We've kind of built it over time. His warm up used to be like 40, 45 minutes. So he'd come in before we like start training.
That way you guys can focus on the important stuff in that 90 minutes with you.
Exactly.
Right.
We've been able to kind of to shave it down to about 20 minutes now, and it's like boom, like comes in, gets it done on a bar, and we're moving.
Yeah.
So
I'm the same way. Like I have my clients do their own warm-up routine. That way, when they're with me already, we're focused on the important stuff. But I feel like that's where you kind of differ, is because you are with them through the entire warm-up, the entire cool down. You know, so that's why it's longer.
Well, I worry about injuries when I, do my training with them. I worry about injuries because injuries can happen in a split second. You can be doing lightweight, but just that one movement, boom, you could pull this muscle, you can strain this muscle, and when you're not stretched or you don't have that flexibility, it becomes a concern. And that was with one lifter. The other one was very flexible. She could turn into a pretzel, man. She was that flexible, but the other one couldn't even touch her toes. So I knew it was going to take time, and it's something that you pace yourself, and they used to wonder, wow, you stretch her, you do this and you do that, you don't want injuries to happen.
Yeah.
That's one thing you don't want, because to me, when you get injured, you were talking about it last time that you kind of like work through it and stuff. My thing on injuries is when you get injured, I think there's a recovery time. You need to let that injury heal to go ahead and progress at that rate that you were at. Because if the injury is still there, but it's getting better, and you keep working out, you're going to injure it more as you're working out more.
Yeah.
Why are you smiling?
Hey, Mike, you're so good at segueing to other topics.
The wrong topic.
But you're spot on. But you're spot on because that's one of the other topics, Mike. But it's a perfect segue. But like, I do like, you did point it out. I think the warm up is super important, and I love it because when I would train mine, the same thing. I would probably have her warm up on her own, and I would show up. By the time I'm showing up, she's already done
but obviously, we work to get themselves to that point where they can do it by themselves.
Yeah.
It's not just like, hey, you do this. Right, exactly.
Right.
And then when it comes to that, I mean, one of the things that I think we were talking a lot about outside camera too is that I love you as a coach, and you tend to work pretty well with handling their outside stresses and their outside responsibilities or anything like that. I mean, can you speak a little bit more on how do you approach like an athlete when it comes to handling their outside stresses, so that way it doesn't affect them too much when you're training them inside the gym?
Yeah, I mean, were you saying something?
No.
Oh, sorry. I think it's kind of, we touched on it before a little bit, and it has to be individualistic because not everybody's in the same life place, right? But at the same thread, right, like motivation isn't always going to be there. There has to be discipline that's built, but that comes through understanding purpose and understanding the goal, right? And what I mean by that is if you believe in the process that you're taking and you know that the goal you're trying to get to is achievable, that is how discipline is created, right? I don't believe that discipline is a characteristic. I believe that discipline is something that can be captured in terms of how that process happens. And if you have those two things align in terms of process and goal, and that discipline can be created, then whether you're motivated or not, you're still going to go check the box and get into the gym. And that's where I have to, not have to, but that's where I choose to bring all of my clients along. Because I know coaches that will not share information, and not that they keep it hostage or anything, but they just that's just not their style of like coaching, and that's not their approach. And so I've inherited a few clients in the last few months that came from that, where they're kind of guessing, trying to figure out what's next, not really knowing what the path is, not seeing the roadmap and what they're trying to follow. When in my viewpoint and the way that I approach it is I'm just a guide. I am a guide on their strength journey, whatever that looks like. Yep. They're the ones that have to follow it, and they're the ones that have to do the work. And, like I kind of compare it to like a cartographer, right? Like I'm writing the map, and they're the ones that have to walk the path. Sometimes we may have to kind of alter course depending upon what we run into in terms of whatever that roadblock is. But they're still the ones that have to do the work. And if they don't see what that end goal is, even in a short training block, right, then it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to buy in. They're going to have less desire to actually get into the gym. We're going to be struggling and kind of pulling teeth in order to get them in sessions. And overall, I mean, if they're not really bought into the process and they're not seeing the end goal and understanding where they're going to, then they're also going to, I mean, they're going to be lax in the gym, right? And so like Allison's a really good example of this one, not to like put her down or anything, but like we're finishing up a 12-week long training block that I had planned out for her, really, really hammering down on weaknesses, really, really increasing frequency and doing some high volume work that, not that she's not used to it, but it's just not the norm in terms of what things look like because we're taking a rather long off season from when she competed last. And a big reason for that, I pushed her to take time off because I wanted to really, really, really build things out in a way so that way she wasn't just kind of like getting by and going through the motions and doing this and then, okay, here's meet day. And then it's like, okay, going through the motions and then here's meet day again. It's like, no. Let's hammer down on stuff that you need. And so when I threw her first training block in, initially she had a tougher time with it because normally I'll do like an upper lower split. With this one, I had her on a higher frequency like program. So I have her squatting 3 times a week. I have her benching twice a week and deadlifting once a week. And so she was like, all right, like kind of half bought in. And I threw some specialty bar work at her, which she has this weird relationship with the safety bar. And so I kept it out of her program for a long time, but I kept saying, like hinting, like, this is the missing piece. This is the missing piece. Like, we need it back in. It was like a long played out game to get her to be like, okay, like I'll do this. Cause I can be like you and I'd be like, nah, like we're doing this and that's it. And I don't care if you like it or not. But sometimes, like, I still want to take a little bit of a softer approach because then, you know, like, at the end of the day, like, they're still paying for the service and they're still, like, a client, right? So I can't fully be like, nah, like, this is what we're doing, you know? And so if
Come on now.
so we're
Anyways, let him finish, Mike. Let him finish.
Tom's an understanding guy.
I know.
Like he said off camera, he has a heart.
there's levels, there's levels to it. There's levels to it, right? But anyway, so now we're entering the last phase of this like 12-week build, and things are hitting. Like she's moving well. She's hitting she just hit a rep PR on Saturday on squats, and she's like, oh yeah, she's like, all right, like I'm seeing it, I'm understanding. You know what I mean? More bought in now. Yeah, and so it kind of takes that like. But that's what I mean by like kind of bringing the athlete with you and bringing the client with you, because they have to understand where they're going and what the goal is to be able to trust the process enough to be able to execute and do the work.
So it really just boils down to like goal setting, smart goals, like realistic, attainable, all that stuff.
Right.
When they can see it, then they get motivated.
Yeah.
You know, they get motivated to keep going, to keep training, to keep working hard.
Yeah.
You know, but when they can't see it, then, you know, they get disappointed.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to try to get them to understand, you know, this is like a plateau. We're going to get through it.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I think it's also like his approach. You know, you understand it. You keep bringing in those little like hints like, hey, you know what? I know you don't like this, but it's coming back. But you still kind of cater to like keep them engaged and whatnot and help them understand.
Yeah.
That's why, like I said, once you show it to them, they're very bought in. So I like that approach, man.
Yeah. I mean, if I can front load it enough with information that they need, right? Not necessarily not that they don't want it, but like not every client wants education in that way. Not every client necessarily wants to be told like where they're going. They just want the work sometimes.
Yeah.
But if I can at least front load it enough to help them understand like this is the plan, this is the direction, here's what we're working towards, and then they're able to at least kind of decipher what that looks like, then there's going to be even more buy-in than normal from before, because then they're going to want to do that work, you know, and be able to actually like execute the plan that we have, and then they're just going to be happier about going to the gym. You know, like if they can be happy walking to the gym, be excited to train, that's probably the biggest win anyways.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Oh man, Tom, I really like how you approach this, dude, and you keep it simple. Like I said, everyone's got different approaches. No approach is a wrong approach, Michael. Every approach works with the coach and the athlete. So I really like how you kind of break it down, and honestly, I love your relationship with your clients. I feel like you're a good dude, and you are genuine when it comes to being a coach.
Thanks. I
Any
appreciate
final
that.
words on your guys' end?
No, man. You know, Tom, you're the one thing I've learned through your, you know, your information and stuff is how to train and how to approach my lifter in certain ways. I don't know about the hard part, but you'll get there.
Yeah.
But I'll get there, I think.
You'll get there, Mr. Grinch.
Just the Tin Man over here.
Exactly.
Well, ladies,
I kind of understand it, you know, Tom.
There you go.
I
Hey.
understand it.
That's all right.
Perfect. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Tom's strategies mixed in with some of Coach Mike's strategies to powerlifting.
Yes.
Hope you guys enjoyed it, learned a little bit more. I'm Coach Cisco.
I'm Coach. Oh, go for it. Go for it.
Go ahead, you.
I'm Coach Kyle. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and type that in the comment section.
And I'm Coach Michael.
And this is
Coach Tommy.
Like,
Yes, sir.
comment, subscribe. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Nice.